interesting stuff. I don't know why. I just got all into giants in the land, and I pulled that stuff out this time. So we have some interesting things to talk about today. So we're in Isaiah, starting at chapter 13. And Harold starts out. So Harold.
And an oracle concerning Babylon that Isaiah, son of Amos, saw.
Raise a banner on a bare hilltop. Shout to them. Beckon to them to enter the gates of the nobles.
I have commanded my holy ones. I have summoned my warriors to carry out my wrath. Those who rejoice in my triumph.
Listen, a noise on the mountain, like that of a great multitude. Listen, an uproar among the kingdoms, like nations massing together. The Lord Almighty is mustering an army for war.
Thank you. So in this section, God is claiming ownership of this army. He's saying, this is by my hand. I'm doing this. Who are the people he's having do this? The Babylonians and the Assyrian Babylonia, right? So here God is really claiming the ownership. In Isaiah's day, Babylon was part of the Assyrian Empire. So we think of it as kind of very separate, but actually it was a part of the larger land mass, which would be Assyria. And it was one of the most important cities. So you have the city of Babylon, and then you have Babylonia, which would be the whole kind of kingdom that Babylon was the city of. So in this section in Isaiah, both Assyria and then Assyria comes in and takes the northern kingdom, and then later Babylonia takes all of Assyria plus the southern kingdom. And so that's what we're seeing happen. And God is being very clear to say, this is by my hand, I am doing this. Was there any individual person who was following after God in that nation? Likely so.
Yeah.
There likely was somebody. What's going to happen to that individual, that one individual?
They'll get carried off with the
He's going to
rest.
suffer the consequences.
Thus we are.
Yeah.
Yes.
Right? We have to recognize that sometimes God's own hand is making bad guys do bad things, allowing them to conquer or to do, because he's punishing or taking action against what's wrong in a culture or a society. So I don't know how you all felt when at this recent election, but I was much relieved because I saw a turnaround in the mindset of our leadership in our country to go a different way. Not that it's all good, but I thought the other way was getting really scary for me. I was feeling like we were going to be caught up in this swamp mess of things that were sinful and not at all what God had in mind. Not that everything was, but I mean, just certain pieces were so offensive to me that I was concerned about it. But we have to recognize that that's what's happening here with these people. There's probably some Joe Schmo somewhere who's doing a good job and being a good Jew and doing what he's supposed to do. But they're rare, few and far between. And there are going to be some people swept up in this mess that won't know what they ever did wrong. Okay? So we need to recognize that here. When it says holy ones, is he calling Assyria and Babylonia holy? What does holy mean?
Set apart.
Set apart. What he's saying is, God is saying, I have set apart Assyria and Babylonia to do this. This is by my hand. I'm doing this. The Lord Almighty is doing this. Don't make the mistake of thinking that Assyria is getting you, because I'm the one that's letting Assyria get you. I could have protected you if I had wanted to, but I didn't. He wants to make sure they know that this is God's judgment on them.
And just because God says, this is my army I'm sending, don't think that they know God.
There you go. There you go.
Yeah.
So true. Okay, heavens.
Heavens, they come from faraway lands, from the ends of heavens, the Lord, and the weapons of his wrath to destroy the whole country.
That's pretty clear right there, isn't it?
Yeah.
They're coming from all over, and they're the weapons of his wrath. Very good. Thank you. Isaiah?
Wail, for the day of the Lord is near. It will come like destruction from the Almighty. Because of this, all hands will go limp. Every man's heart will melt. Terror will seize them. Pain and anguish will grip them. They will writhe like a woman in labor. They will look aghast at each other, their faces aflame.
Earth. Oh, that's me. See, the day of the Lord is coming, a cruel day, with wrath and fierce anger, to make the land desolate and destroy the sinners within it.
Heavens, the stars of heaven and their constellations will not show their light. The rising sun will be darkened, and the moon will not give its light.
Now, we have looked up these different signs in the sky before in relation to the end times. Do you see the phrase under earth, see the day of the Lord? There's our little signal. Often when we see that day of the Lord, that's often an idea that gets repeated in the future. And so in this case, it says the stars of heaven and their constellations will not show their light. The rising sun will be darkened and the moon will not give its light. When is the rising sun darkened? At a solar eclipse, right? When would the where's the other one? When would the moon be darkened? An eclipse.
Same thing.
Do stars ever fall from the sky?
Yeah.
You see shooting stars, right? So this is saying that you're going to see signs in the heavens, which we know for end times in Revelation and some of the prophecies, they talk about some signs in the sky. So that's what this is talking about. What if it were to say there would be a blood moon? What's a blood moon?
Blood moon.
A lunar eclipse, right? We saw pictures of the blood moon before, saw some pictures of the lunar eclipse and how it makes the moon look red. That's called a blood moon. Because it uses the term the day of the Lord, I thought that you might like to see one of the prophetic, two of the prophetic areas that use similar language. In Joel 2, verses 10, before them the earth shakes, the heavens tremble, the sun and moon are darkened, and the stars no longer shine. The sun will be turned to darkness and the moon to blood before the coming of the great and dreadful day of the Lord. And everyone who calls on the name of the Lord will be saved. For on Mount Zion and in Jerusalem there will be deliverance, as the Lord has said, even among the survivors whom the Lord calls. So that's familiar language, isn't it? Look at Revelation 6. Now, Joel would have been writing maybe around this time that these events that we're reading about in Isaiah happened, right? But Revelation, was it written about that time?
No.
Nope. Revelation 6. I watched as he opened the sixth seal. There was a great earthquake. The sun turned black like sackcloth made of goat hair. The whole moon turned blood red, and the stars in the sky fell to earth as figs drop from a fig tree when shaken by a strong wind. That's in Revelation 6. Now, are those events things that just happen? No, these are signs in the sky. They're not magical things. They're things that are setting the times and the seasons. God said he set the sun and the moon and the stars for the times and the seasons so that we can reckon the months and the times of the year and all of that. Things like a blood moon, if you could make a calendar showing all the blood moons that are going to occur, because you could predict when there's going to be the eclipse of the moon. It's predictable. Stars falling from the sky, not so much, right? We don't really know how to predict that. But things like eclipses and blood moons and things like that, we do know how to predict those things. So these things are not magic. They're not magical. They're meaning that there's going to come a time, and God has set that time, and there's going to be these other signs at the same time. And that'll be part of us recognizing the time. So what do we do different? We run high, get out of the chair? No, we don't do anything different. We just recognize that God's at work. We say, oh, look, God's at work. He told us there would be these signs. And then we have comfort in that, right? We relax in that because we know that it's God's work that's being done. Okay? God?
I will punish the world for its evil, the wicked for their sins. I will put an end to the arrogance of the haughty and will humble the pride of the ruthless. I will make man scarcer than pure gold, more rare than gold of Ophir. Therefore I will make the heavens tremble, and the earth will shake from its place at the wrath of the Lord Almighty.
In
Isaiah.
the day of his burning anger, like a hunted gazelle, like sheep without a shepherd, each will return to his own people. Each will flee to his native land.
So here, when it says, I will make man scarcer than pure gold, more rare than the gold of Ophir. Apparently, that place, Ophir, I don't know if that's how you say it, Ophir, I'm not sure. But anyway, that's where Solomon got his gold. It was known for having gold. It's a small place, but Solomon got his gold from there and imported it in. And so it was known for having this gold, but it's pretty far down. You had to go quite a ways to go to get it south of where Israel is at. So it's very rare. God humbles the proud for their failure to trust in him and their exploitation of the poor and the weak. He's saying, you kingdoms that think you are so hot and almighty, and you've been punishing the people, you've been taking advantage of the poor and the weak, and I'm going to bring you down. So he's making sure to make it clear that it's him who's doing it. It's not by accident. It's not because they were mean kings. It's because God is taking them down. Heavens?
Heavens. Whoever captured will be thrust through. All who are caught will fall by the sword.
On earth. Their infants will be dashed to pieces before their eyes. Their houses will be looted and their wives ravished.
See, I will stir up against them the Medes, who do not care for silver and have no delight in gold. Their bows will strike down the young men. They will have no mercy on infants, nor will they look with compassion on children.
Often invading armies would kill the children, infants, because they want no future. They're trying to kill that people group. It's not just that they are fighting a war. They're trying to get rid of that people group. And so they would kill everyone, the women, the children, and everyone. Groups that were just going at it for war might kill just the men and leave the women and the children. So this is making the point that they're killing everyone. The Medes are bent on conquest, and they cannot be bribed to switch sides or withdraw. They're coming in to make conquest. Isaiah.
Babylon, the jewel of kingdoms, the glory of the Babylonians' pride, will be overthrown by God like Sodom and Gomorrah. She will never be inhabited or lived in through all generations. No Arab will pitch his tent there. No shepherd will rest his flocks there.
Do you think that's kind of like an insult? Not even an Arab's going to pitch his tent there. The shepherd won't even rest their flocks there. You guys are going to be so bad. Go ahead.
But desert creatures will lie there. Jackals will fill her houses. There the owls will dwell, and there the wild goats will leap about. Hyenas will howl in their strongholds, jackals in her luxurious palaces. Her time is at hand, and her days will not be prolonged.
So Babylon was known for its great temples and palaces. It was a beautiful city. They had the hanging gardens of Nebuchadnezzar. They were one of the 7 wonders of the world. So they were renowned for it. But Babylon became a symbol of evil and of complete destruction. And we see the term Babylon used in the prophecies for the future in terms of being as bad as Babylon, as unholy as Babylon was, and being as destroyed completely as Babylon was. And so here in Revelation 18:2, with a mighty voice he shouted, "Fallen, fallen is Babylon the Great." Wait a minute, what book is this in?
Isaiah.
This is Revelation.
That's right. Yeah.
This is Revelation. So see, what he's doing in Revelation is bringing back that imagery of the fallen Babylon from the past and how it was such a beautiful city. It was completely destroyed. And he's bringing that back then into this prophecy in Revelation. She has become a dwelling place for demons and a haunt for every impure spirit, a haunt for every unclean bird, a haunt for every unclean and detestable animal. For all the nations have drunk the maddening wine of her adulteries. The kings of the earth committed adultery with her, and the merchants of the earth grew rich from her excessive luxuries. Then I heard another voice from heaven say, "Come out of her, my people, so that you will not share in her sins, so that you will not receive any of her plagues. For her sins are piled up to heaven, and God has remembered her crimes. Give back to her as she has given. Pay her back double for what she has done. Pour her a double portion from her own cup. Give her as much torment and grief as the glory and luxury she gave herself." So Babylon was almost totally destroyed for the last time by the Persian king Xerxes in 478 BC. Then after the time of Alexander the Great, it was conquered again in 330. The city was deserted, it fell into complete ruin, and has remained virtually desolate ever since. And so now it's become the image that we use that the scripture uses in Revelation and other places. Whenever it says, oh Babylon, you know they're going, the fall of Babylon was great. So Isaiah, would you continue on?
Yes. The Lord will have compassion on Jacob. Once again, he will choose Israel and will settle them in their own land. Aliens will join them and unite with the house of Jacob. Nations will take them and bring them to their own place.
Now, wait a minute. Okay, let's think about this a minute. Foreigners will join them. When did that happen? It happened here. When they left Judah and Israel, they were taken captive into other lands. Remember, they came back out of captivity? Remember in Chronicles when Ezra was trying to encourage them to come back and do the different priestly duties and all that, trying to have them come back? So that would be one time that they came back. Any other time you think of?
When they started Israel again.
1948?
1948, yeah.
Was it 48? Right, right. Is this not the kind of foreshadowing that we talked about in prophecy?
Yeah.
Where a thing happens and then it happens again and it might happen again. When we see things in Revelation that talk about Babylon or whatever, they're using the imagery from the past failure of Babylon. And in this case, we're seeing this restoration where Israel is going to be restored. Aliens will join them and unite with the house of Jacob. Now, isn't that kind of an odd thing to be reading out of Isaiah? Because, you know, Jews are Jews, right?
It's one description of the Allies during World War II and the rescue of the Jews from the Nazi terror, or the remaining Jews, however many survived.
Because we often think of Jews as being all alone, like if you're either Jewish or you're not. And there's Jews and then everybody else who is not, you know, right? And we think of them as being, but this is saying that aliens are going to join them, like us, and be a part of the house of Jacob. We're going to be a part of it. Yay! So, yeah. So this is the key here is the first 5 words. The Lord will have, because our God is a God of loving kindness, hesed. He keeps hesed with loving kindness. So he may be punishing at this time. There may be some consequences for what they did, which would be negative. But that's also a loving God who doesn't allow us to go the way of sin and corruption. That's a part of being a loving God, just like you as a loving parent discipline your child or name for them what's right or wrong. Or when they get older, you try to give them a little nudge in the right direction, right? Yeah, same thing. Heavens.
And the house of Israel will possess as nations men servants and maid servants in the Lord's land. They will make captives of their captors and rule over their oppressors.
On the day the Lord gives you relief from suffering and turmoil and cruel bondage, you will take up this taunt against the king of Babylon.
How the oppressor has come to an end, how his fury has ended. The Lord has broken the rod of the wicked, the scepter of the rulers, which in anger struck down peoples with unceasing blows, and in fury subdued nations with relentless aggression. All the lands are at rest and at peace. They break into singing. Even the pine trees and the cedars of Lebanon exalt over you and say.
So here, it's going to get better. Hang in there. God is punishing. There is going to be this punishment, but God is going to be with you and is going to make sure that things work out the way they should. This is the comfort, trying to give them some comfort, because it's been pretty bad so far, right? I think I'm a pine trees of Lebanon. Now that you have been laid low, no woodsman comes to cut us down.
The grave below is all astir to meet you at your coming. It rouses the spirits of the departed to greet you. All those who are leaders in the world, it makes them rise from their thrones. All those who are kings over the nations, they will all respond. They will say to you,
You also have become weak as we are. You have become like us.
all your pomp has been brought down to the grave, along with the noise of your harps. Maggots are spread out beneath you, and worms cover you.
So my sisters and I, we would be saying, nanny, 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 goat. That's what this is. This is saying you're getting yours. You deserve what you got. I'm not really sure what that means, though. I just know that's what we would say. Does anybody know what that means? I don't know. When I was a kid, we'd say, nanny, nanny, you got yours, you know? Heavens.
Heavens, how have you fallen from heaven, O morning star, son of the dawn? You have been cast down to the earth, you who once laid low the nations. You said in your heart,
I will ascend to heaven. I will raise my throne above the stars of God. I will sit enthroned on the mount of assembly, on the utmost heights of the sacred mountain. I will ascend above the tops of the clouds. I will make myself like the Most High.
Watch out.
Earth says, but you are brought down to the grave, to the depths of the pit. Those who see you stare at you. They ponder your fate. Okay, now there's a lot of things here to pick up on. Anybody notice something else in here that's a little weird? Have you heard that language before? O morning star, son of the dawn, you have been cast down to earth. Does that bring back any memories?
When Satan was cast down.
I know, there's something about that, isn't there? Some believe that Isaiah is giving a description of the fall of Satan that we see in Luke 10, and I'll show you Luke 10 on the next slide. However, Jesus may be just referring to the event contemporary with himself. So this king is fallen. But the passage clearly applies to the king of Babylon, who is later used as a type of the beast who will lead the Babylon of the last days in Revelation. So you know how that there's that correlation, and again, this would be that foreshadowing kind of thing where you see it happen in history, and then it happens again in history in a different way, a similar but different way. So that part where it says, how you have fallen from heaven, O morning star, when I read that, I'm right away going, wait, something came to memory. It's this passage, Luke 10:17. So Luke, that's like Jesus' days, right?
Yeah.
Okay, what were we reading back here? What days were these? Like way in the old days, way in the times of the kings and all, right? Okay, so now Luke 10:17. The 72 returned with joy and said, Lord, even the demons submit to us in your name. He replied, I saw Satan fall like lightning from heaven. I have given you authority to trample on snakes and scorpions and to overcome all the power of the enemy. Nothing will harm you. However, do not rejoice that the spirits submit to you, but rejoice that your names are written in heaven.
Mhm. Yes.
So what does that make you think of? Let's say it out loud, what we're thinking. It's cool that they can speak and the demons obey, but what's the message here?
That's in God's power and God doing that.
Just, we should be happy that our names are written in heaven, that we are with God. We are on that side, right? We are with God. So
Yes.
some believe that passage in Isaiah was describing the fall of Satan, but Jesus seems to make it more, seems to be talking about a similar idea. So we don't really know if this is, if certainly Jesus knew the Old Testament, right? And he knew what Isaiah wrote. So he may be using that as a play here to get the disciples to understand. So, and then the whole idea that the king of Babylon was later a prefiguration of the beast that we see in Revelation 13 is called the beast. So we have to keep our focus on God, not on the enemy, nor on the power or authority of the enemy. We should have our power and authority focused on God, who's given us that to do his work.
You know, you ever think that the devil, the disciples ever thought that they understood what Jesus was saying? I saw Satan fall like lightning from heaven. You think they ever correlated that with he was before? Kinda interesting, huh? Cause I know when I read that the first time, I thought, what's he saying right there? They just mean like, because they were out saving the demons, that he saw Satan fall like heaven. Then it wasn't about that, he was just saying that he was there when that happened. Pretty interesting.
Yeah, because he's eternal. And we often think Jesus came when he was born, but he was here before that. Good. Okay, lots of rich stuff here. Huh? Wait till we get to the giants. Okay, Israel.
Is this the man who shook the earth and made kingdoms tremble? The man who made the world a desert, who overthrew its cities and would not let his captors go home?
All the kings of the nations lie in state, each in his own tomb.
Can you stop just a moment there? So the part that she read says, is this the man who shook the earth and made kingdoms? And Isaiah says, he's laying in his tomb. You see the correlation there? You think you're all that, but you're in your tomb. Go ahead.
But you are cast out of your tomb like a rejected branch.
So worse, you're not even in your tomb. You've been cast out of it. Go ahead.
Oh my goodness. You are covered with the slain, with those pierced by the sword, those who descend to the stones of the pit. Like a corpse trampled underfoot, you will not join them in burial, for you have destroyed your land and killed your people.
The offspring of the wicked will never be mentioned again. Prepare a place to slaughter for his sons for the sins of their forefathers. They are not to rise to inherit the land and cover the earth with their cities.
So that was part of the thinking, is that you destroy not only the leader that did the harm, but you destroy the whole generation, the whole family, so that you have no one that takes up after it and brings it back to be. So that's that kind of concept. So in the captives go home. Babylon, like Assyria, deported large segments of defeated populations to subdue the rebellion among them. So they would take people, they would come into the land, they take those people out, and then they pull people in from other places and mix them up so that you can't tell what's up or down. To not have a proper burial was a huge insult, and it was intended to shame the deceased. To have one's body discarded was considered a terrible fate. A man's children, as well as his tombstone, were his memorial. And so the king of Babylon would have neither a tombstone nor children to remember that he ever existed.
Cast out like a dog.
Like a dog. You treat me like a dog. I hope not. I buried my dog.
Yes.
Was it
Bad dog.
Was it a bad
Bad
dog?
dog.
Bad dog.
Oh, I don't know. I get your point. God?
I will rise up against them.
Declares the Lord.
I will cut off from Babylon her name and survivors, her offspring and descendants.
Declares the Lord.
I will turn her into a place for owls and into swampland. I will sweep her with the broom of destruction.
Declares the Lord Almighty. The Lord Almighty has sworn.
Surely as I have planned, so it will be, and as I have purposed, so it will stand. I will crush the Assyrian in my hand. On my mountains I will trample him down. His yoke will be taken from my people, and his burden removed from their shoulders.
So God is reminding them, this was God's hand. By his hand, he allowed this to happen, but he's not going to let them get away with it either. He's going to make sure they come to destruction. And Babylon is so fully destroyed that they don't exist. They didn't exist in history. It became a lost history and became the symbol of a fully destroyed people. In the future prophecies, the wickedness and then the complete destruction are symbols that Babylon ends up standing for. Instead of the beautiful gardens and the wonderful structures that they had built, it was considered one of the 7 wonders of the world at one time.
So that applies today, right now. When you go against Israel, look out.
Yeah, it's not like we haven't been warned, right?
Right.
Right.
That's what scared me so much about what was happening with the previous
Yeah.
administration. I feel a little more comfortable, maybe I shouldn't, but I
Yeah.
mean, I just,
Yeah.
you feel nervous when things aren't going the way they should in reference to Israel. Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, Isaiah.
This is a plan determined for the whole world. This is the hand stretched out over all nations. For the Lord Almighty has purposed, and who can thwart him? His hand is stretched out, and who can turn it back?
This oracle came in the year of King Ahaz, year King Ahaz died.
Do not rejoice, all you Philistines, that the rod that struck you is broken. For the root of that snake will spring up like a viper. Its fruit will be a darting, venomous serpent. The poorest of the poor will find pasture, and the needy will lie down in safety.
God. God.
Oh, it's not highlighted on my sheet.
Oh, I'm so sorry. My fault.
But your root I will destroy by famine. It will slay your survivors.
So the Philistines. What do we know about the Philistines?
David and Goliath.
What do we know about David and Goliath and the Philistines?
Well, the Philistines were fighting.
And Goliath was a Philistine.
Yes.
And what do we know about Goliath?
Giant.
He was a big boy.
Giant, yeah.
Did he have any siblings?
Yeah, he did.
Yeah, they were a big people, and Goliath particularly was big, and along with his, I think there were 4 of them. So they ended up being destroyed, but the Philistines are like a topic within itself. And I went back to some of our other slides and pulled together some of the information we've gathered on the Philistines before so that we can talk about them. In this prophecy against the Philistines, we have other prophecies that go along with it. Let's take a look in Jeremiah 47:3b. Parents will not turn to help their children, their hands will hang limp, for the day has come to destroy all the Philistines and to remove all survivors who could help Tyre and Sidon. What did it have against the Philistines? I'll tell you. The Lord is about to destroy the Philistines, the remnants from the coast of Caphtor. Gaza will shave her head in mourning. Ashkelon will be silenced. You remnant on the plain, how long will you cut yourselves? That's weird, huh? Let me read you some more weird stuff. Ezekiel 25. This is what the sovereign Lord says, because the Philistines acted in vengeance and took revenge with malice in their hearts, and with ancient hostility sought to destroy Judah. Therefore, this is what the sovereign Lord says. I am about to stretch out my hand against the Philistines, and I will wipe out the Kerethites and destroy those remaining along the coast. I will carry out great vengeance on them and punish them in my wrath. Then they will know that I am the Lord when I take vengeance on them. These Philistines are in trouble. Wait till I show you the map. Amos. This is what the Lord says. For 3 sins of Gaza, these Ashkelon, Gaza, those are all Philistine cities. For 3 sins of Gaza, even for 4, I will not relent, because she took captive whole communities and sold them to Edom. Now, Edom, do you remember where Edom is? What's the connection to Edom? Esau? Edom is the land where Jacob and Esau were brothers. They had a little problem, and Esau created that area, became Edom, remember? And they sat high in their mountain and scoffed out and helped to pick on the Jews when they came into the land. Yep, that's Esau. So we're talking about Edom. Because she took captive whole communities and sold them to Edom. In other words, Edom was bad in this. I will send fire on the walls of Gaza. Gaza?
That's been in the news lately.
Have you been in the news lately?
And there's a little fire on
And
that.
Gaza is one of the cities of the Philistines. Interesting. That will consume her fortresses. I will destroy the king of Ashdod and the one who holds the scepter in Ashkelon, both cities of the Philistines. I will turn my hand against Ekron till the last of the Philistines are dead, says the sovereign Lord. Oh my.
Get rid of them.
How about Zechariah? Gaza will be abandoned and Ashkelon left in ruins. At midday, Ashdod will be emptied and Ekron uprooted. Woe to you who live by the sea, you Karathite people. The word of the Lord is against you. The word of the Lord is against you. Canaan, land of the Philistines, he says, I will destroy you and none will be left. The land by the sea will become pastures, having wells for shepherds and pens for flocks. That land will belong to the remnant of the people of Judah. There they will find pasture. In the evening they will lie down in the houses of Ashkelon. The Lord their God will care for them. He will restore their fortunes. So from God's point of view, the whole land that the Philistines are in should have been a part of Judah. Judah, the southern kingdom, should have been a part of Judah. But you can see the Philistines there on the edge. Eventually, the Philistines ceased to exist as their own people and culture. And because of this, their descendants never returned to the Levant. However, their significance would continue to live on long after their expungement from the map, as the name of the region of Palestine derives from the Philistines. What do we call that now? Is that not the Gaza Strip over there?
Yeah.
Palestine.
What comes around goes around. History just seems to keep going in circles, right? The Philistines dominated the southern coastal plain, controlling the Via Maris. Remember when David and Solomon came into power? So that Via Maris was going along that coastline. You can see it here. So they controlled that. Do you remember when, I just have this memory. I don't remember which one of them it was. The 12 guys go into the land of Canaan, right? They fight all the battles. They come across from the east over to the west, and then they go down, and the one guy says, I'll go take care of those Philistines. Give me that land. That will be my portion.
It
Who
was
is that?
somebody old, I think.
Yeah, he was 80 years old.
Yeah.
And it was one of the last lands. He says, give it to me. I'll go get it. But when they first came into the land of Canaan, when God brought them out of Egypt, and they first came in, they said, 12 men went down to spy on Canaan. 10 were bad. What was bad about the 10?
They were afraid of the people.
They were discouraged.
And 2 were good. And it was one of those 2 who, when it came around and he was 80 years old, he said, let me at him. I'll go get him this time. Was it Josh? No, I think it was
Must have been Caleb.
Caleb. I think it was Caleb.
Must have been Caleb, because Joshua was the leader overall.
Yeah,
Yes.
I think it was Caleb. Said, let me have it. Let me have that, because they were dividing up the portions. And he said, let me have that piece. And I just get this in my head, this image. Let me have him. Okay, so I think that's kind of an interesting connection to this land, the Philistine land. And let's see. If you look at the map of the 12 tribes, do you see the Philistines? It was never conquered. You still see the Philistine land right here.
Great.
They never got it done.
That's now the Gaza Strip. Yeah.
Now, I know this is a little weird, so if you don't like weird stuff, just kind of go la 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 la, don't listen, okay? Go na na na. Okay, well, I'm going to show you some weird stuff, all right? The Philistines were part of the invading sea people who arrived in Canaan a little before the Israelites. The Greek translation of the Hebrew scripture, the Septuagint, calls them other nations, and recent archaeology suggests they came from Crete. And I'm going to show you where Crete is because I didn't know either. I thought it might be that one island that you see sometimes off, but it's not that one. I'll show you. Let's see where Crete. Let's see. The Greek translation of the Hebrew scripture, the Septuagint, calls them other nations, and recent archaeology suggests they came from Crete. Archaeologists find the first ever Philistine cemetery in Israel. That was in July 2016. Early archaeologists thought the Philistines came from Egypt in the south of Anatolia in Turkey, but recent excavations indicate Crete. So they thought they came from down south, down by like where Egypt is, up. But that's not where they came from. They came from Crete. And here, this lady, she has a skull. Look how big that skull is.
Yes.
That's from Arizona State University. That's a 3,000-year-old Philistine skull discovered at the excavation site in Ashkelon, June of 2016. This is the first skeletal evidence we have of the Philistines. There were 150 bodies that had been found in this 2016 dig.
Wow.
And look how good his teeth are.
Yeah.
Yes.
John looked at them.
Must not have been very old.
So they came from water, from Crete.
I'll show you some more. I got more. I'll show you a map pretty soon. This is the director of the digs, was Dr. Lawrence Steger, professor emeritus of archaeology at Harvard University, says that 99% of what we thought we knew about the Philistines must now either be completely ignored or revised. Understanding the scriptures is an ongoing endeavor. Here, this is the Ashkelon excavation site. The graves were oval shaped, and the artifacts found within them are Philistine, not Canaanite, and they suggest an Aegean cultural origin. In other words, the different artifacts that they found, the shape and the style of the grave and all, is part of what fits them with a different people group than with what they originally thought. Okay, and then here's a map. Because I could not figure out where Crete was. I kept looking at this island right here,
Cyprus?
Cyprus. I think, oh, they came from there. But no, they came from Crete. It's much further, like down south of Italy.
Long way.
Do you
Oh,
see
it's
it
a
over
Greek
there? I
island.
drew a white line over there.
Yeah.
Can you see it?
Over to Crete.
Cyprus is a very different island from Crete. It is the third largest and third most populated island of the Mediterranean Sea, Cyprus is. It is an island steeped in myth and riddled with ancient cities and tales. Cyprus was settled by Mycenaean Greeks in ancient times and has long had a predominantly Greek identity. Okay, we're almost to the giants. Let's take a look at Genesis 6. When human beings began to increase in number on the earth and daughters were born to them, the sons of God saw that the daughters of humans were beautiful, and they married any of them they chose. Then the Lord said, My spirit will not contend with humans forever, for they are mortal. Their days will be 120 years. What were they before that?
800.
Lots.
700,
I
800.
have my chart. Right, we have a chart.
600, 800.
Yeah, we have a whole chart of it, right? Here it is.
Before the time of Noah, yes, they were reported to have done that, yes.
Here you go. Remember this chart we made?
Yes.
So this is the flood. And this is how long individuals lived. So if you look here, this is Adam, Seth, Enoch, Kenan. This is how long they lived. And each bar is, I don't know how many years now, I haven't looked at it in a while. And then here is the flood. And we used this to explain that people were alive when the other ones came along. So as these stories are happening in the scripture, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 generations still alive at the same time. So people say, well, how do we know the Old Testament is correct?
Yeah.
Because Grandpa back here would say, now that's not the way that it happened. You got 9 generations to make sure you're right. But notice what happens at the flood.
The lifespan reduced.
We have writing,
Pardon?
then they start writing history.
So, let's see, that's where we're at. So the Lord said, the Nephilim were on the earth in those days, and also afterward, when the sons of God went to the daughters of humans and had children by them, they were the heroes of old, men of renown. The Lord saw how great the wickedness of the human race had become on earth, and at that every inclination of the thoughts of the human heart was only evil all the time. The Lord regretted that he had made human beings on earth, and his heart was deeply troubled. So the Lord said, I will wipe from the face of the earth the human race I have created, and with them the animals, the birds, and the creatures that move along the ground, for I regret that I have made them. But Noah found favor in the eyes of the Lord.
A remnant.
So we read this all the time, but it talks about Nephilim. What do you guys do with that? When you read that about these Nephilim that have relations with the daughters of humans, it's like insinuating that they weren't humans. So, and they then produce giants. So what do you do with that?
I just
Angels?
skip over it.
Yeah, if you have a Catholic background, you may have read the Book of Enoch. Anybody here read the Book of Enoch? The Book of Enoch is an apocalyptic literature that is included in many Catholic Bibles. The Catholic Bible has more books in it than the Protestant Bible has, and one of them is the Book of Enoch. I tried to read it, but it was just too fanciful for me. For me, it was just way out there. I couldn't. But anyway, it's an ancient writing, and but it's not thought by. Not everyone agrees that it should be a part of Scripture, and so when the Protestant Bible was put together, that was one of the books that was not included in the canon. So the Book of Enoch and the Book of Giants indicates that the Nephilim were mean giants who consumed all the acquisitions of men and devoured mankind. They arose from the union of humans and fallen angels. Those fallen angels were known as watchers. They were called watchers in the text. So I don't know what you do with that, because we have this weird thing in Genesis. We have this thing with the whole, did God do the flood? Was that a part of getting rid of that mixed breeding that was going on? But then if that happened, then how do we have these giants after then that appear in the Philistine land? So I don't know the solution to that, but I did find this. I keep finding interesting stuff. I thought that, Goliath was the biggest guy, but Goliath he's on this list here. He's the fourth guy.
10 feet, 6.
Goliath is here. So look at these guys.
Wow.
I know, crazy, huh? Goliath had 4 brothers, all 4 from Gath, and they were killed by David and his men. There was King Og of Bashan. That's let's see, he's over here. He's bigger than Goliath. Og, king of Bashan, right here. That's in Deuteronomy 3:11. I can't help it, it's in the Bible. So King Og of Bashan was the last survivor of the giant Rephaites tribe. His bed was made of iron and was more than 13 feet long and 6 feet wide. It can still be seen in the Ammonite city of Rabbah. And that's in the Bible. That's in Deuteronomy 3:11. Okay, but let's go back and look at this chart. Now, I don't know if this is right. I just found this chart, okay? It says that a present-day man is about 6 feet tall. In southeast Turkey, in the late 1950s, this guy was 15 feet.
Wow.
Maximus Thrax, Caesar of Rome, 235 AD, 8 foot 6 inches. Goliath, 10 foot 6 inches. That's in 1 Samuel 17. Og was 12 feet, king of Bashan. That's in Deuteronomy 3:11. This guy's 19 feet 6 inches. 1577 was when they was found. He was under an overturned oak tree in the canyon of Lukat.
Who documented these heights?
I don't know. They measured the bones apparently. Here, this guy was 23 feet. In 1456 from France, his skeleton was found beside a river in Valence. 25 feet 6 inches. This is from 1613 AD, France, near the castle of Chaumont, nearly a complete skeleton.
That was 16, that was the time
1613.
the skeleton was found?
Yes,
Okay, not the time that the guy lived.
right.
Okay.
In 650 BC to 640 AD, this guy is 36 feet. Carthaginians uncovered 2 this size. An earthquake in Cimarron, Bosphorus uncovered 1 more. I don't know what to do with that. I think that's interesting.
How'd you like to feed them?
Is this writer credentialed in some way?
Well, what I'm wondering is if, there are all kinds of disorders that make people grow larger than they should. And, you find the bones, you don't know what the situation was, whether it was a whole group of people or just one guy that had a hormonal issue. I don't know.
Yeah.
Oh, like that one guy.
But anyway, I found it a little bit interesting. Do you find it interesting?
Well, do you think it's to do with the fallen angels? And they had special powers.
That's one.
Yeah. I don't know.
Well, none of those others, no, the only thing mentioned in Bible were the Rephaim from the Philistine area.
There's still all kinds of conspiracies on fallen angels being underground and giants and all that stuff. That's still all out there.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I can barely learn what's right in the scripture in front of me, much else.
Well, yeah, but
Yeah.
when we transition from adolescence to adulthood, there are different hormones that make us either keep growing or stop growing, right?
Right.
And if the keep growing hormone is still stays on instead of the stop growing one, things could go bizarre.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Well,
Bizarre.
what I don't understand, or maybe I don't I don't know, is, back in Noah's time, like, how evil could it be, except for some weird like this? Because look at today, how come it's now happening right now?
Well, there have been people who've had different hormonal things, and people who've grown really tall, and pituitary issues and stuff. And I think today what we see is the medical services will intervene to try to help them. So, but there have been, giants today and they don't live very long. They're usually kind of frail and have other medical issues. But yeah, so maybe these others were just freak instances like that. Maybe they found the big toe and the big toe was big and they decided to say it was the whole, you know what I mean? I don't know.
It could be, but what I'm getting at is, how bad could it be? I mean, that's so long ago that wasn't everybody good then, and not that many people, and nobody
Well, if
driving,
everyone
no
was
sex
killed,
change or
if
nothing.
the Nephilim were all taken out in the flood,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? Then
Yeah.
you would be starting from fresh,
Yeah.
so
Right.
there
But I
wouldn't
mean,
be.
it was really evil before that.
Yeah.
So how did, to me, it's more evil, but.
Yeah,
I
so the
don't know.
Philistines were big boys, and there are history of big boys in the time, so, anyway. And they were probably from the Isle of Crete, not from Cyprus, just in case, somebody needs to know.
Okay.
Okay, Harold, you wanna wail, Harold?
Wail, O gate, howl, O city, melt away, all you Philistines.
A cloud of smoke comes from the north, and there is not a straggler in its ranks. What answer shall be given to the envoys of that nation?
The Lord has established Zion, and in her his afflicted people will find refuge. An oracle concerning Moab.
Now, we're changing to Moab. So we talked about the Philistines, right? Where's Moab? You see where they are? Yeah, I've got a little pointer right here. Handy dandy pointer, Moab. So remember the Edomites, they were from Esau's clan, right? The Moabites, do you know where they're from?
Cain,
Huh?
was it Cain or was it that left Sodom?
No.
And his wife turned to salt.
When Lot was in Sodom and Gomorrah, and he ran out with his wife and his 2 daughters, and his wife turned around and turned to salt, and the 2 daughters ran,
Slept with their dad.
and they got him drunk one night, and one slept with them, and the next night the other one got him drunk and slept with him, which you gotta question all of that.
Yeah.
But anyway, so one of the girls was Moabitess, and the other would be the Ammonites, the family of. So would that be considered like brothers, or like are those cousins? What are those in relation to Jews? Because Lot was a relative of. Go ahead.
I just question, in my memory, wasn't Ruth a Moabitess?
Yeah.
Yeah,
And was that considered favorable?
no.
No. Why? Because of the history. It
Yeah.
was like they were like the shunned tribe, or the dirty people, because of the history of it. And so,
Did
Yeah, Lot
Moses
was-
marry a Moabite?
what?
Did Moses go down and marry one?
I think so. Yeah. Yeah, there's no reasoning to prejudice, right? Because every individual is a different person, no matter what their parents did, or their parents' did, or their country, or what, right? So, yeah, it's one of those things. But there were hard feelings between them, and they weren't considered good. And when the children of Israel came up out of Egypt and had to go into the promised land, do you remember what happened with the Edomites, the Moabites, the Ammonites? Because they had to,
tell them to walk through the land and don't disturb anything and just drink water and keep going.
yeah, and they had to walk way up on the edge, right? Yeah. And then, do you remember about the Ammonites, what they did? They hired a guy. Remember they hired the guy whose donkey talked to him?
Balaam?
Balaam. Yeah, remember that? They hired him to curse, to put a curse on him.
Yeah.
And the donkey told him, you can't put a curse on him. Right? He tried 3 times, but he couldn't do it, couldn't curse him because God was against it. But then you know what Balaam did do? He went to the king later and said, hey, the way to get to these people is to send your young girls over there. And that became the fault. Anyway, back here, where were we? Okay, so now he's talked about the Philistines. Now we're going after Moab. So where are we? Are we in the heavens?
Heavens, yeah.
Okay.
Ar in Moab is ruined, destroyed in the night. Ker in Moab is ruined, destroyed in the night. Devon goes up to its temple, to its high place to weep. Moab wails over Nebo and Medeba.
However you say it, just so
how you
you
say
readers know, however you say it, we all go, yep, yeah, that sounds good. Every head is shaved and every beard cut off. In the streets they wear sackcloth. On the roofs and in public squares they all wail, prostrate with weeping. Heshbon and Eliel cry out. Their voices are heard all the way to Jahaz.
Therefore the armed men of Moab cry out, and their hearts are faint. My heart cries out over Moab. A fugitives flee as far as Zor, as far as Eglath and Shalishah. They go up the way to Lugath, weeping as they go. On the road to Horonon, they lament their destruction.
So one of the problems with Israel is that around them, their enemies are like sibling enemies. If you can make an enemy with anybody, but if you're an enemy with your brother or sister, that's the worst kind of enemy. A relative is closer to you and it makes it even harder. It's even more emotional and can be really negative. So that's basically what's happening here. So the people all around then are being brought into this tumult that's happening. Okay, earth. Oh, that's me. The waters of Nimrim are dried up and the grass is withered. The vegetation is gone and nothing green is left. So the wealth they have acquired and stored up they carry away over the ravine of the poplars.
Heavens. Their outcry echoes along the border of Moab. Their wailing reaches as far as Iglev. Their lamentations as far as Beer Eliam.
Sounds good.
Dimon's waters are full of blood, but I will bring still more upon Dimon, a lion upon the fugitives of Moab, and upon those who remain in the land.
Send lambs as tribute to the ruler of the land, from Selah across the desert to the mount of the daughter of Zion.
So King Misha sent 100,000 lambs to King Ahab of Israel each year. We saw that in 2 Kings chapter 3. So now proud Moab, which has often oppressed Israel, is advised that in this crisis they need to submit to the king of Jerusalem. Whoa, what an insult that is. Why would you say it's like an insulting kind of thing. The natural fortified capital of the Edomites was Selah. It's south of the Dead Sea, and it's situated on a rocky plateau that towers 1,000 feet above the nearby Petra. The name means cliff. The tribute would be sent around the southern end of the Dead Sea. So they're saying to pay tribute to them. The heavens.
Like fluttering birds pushed from the nest, soar the women of Moab to the fords of Arnon. Well, these words are hard to pronounce.
But however you say them is right. So, give us counsel, render a decision, make your shadow like night, a high noon. Hide the fugitives, do not betray the refugees. Let the Moabite fugitives stay with you, be their shelter from the destroyer. And I'm earth also. The oppressor will come to an end, and destruction will cease. The aggressor will vanish from the land. So the women are fleeing south, away from the northern invader, and the Moabites are asking Judah to provide them with refuge. That's what that is saying. Isaiah?
In love, a throne will be established. In faithfulness, a man will sit on it. One from the house of David, one who in judging seeks justice and speeds the cause of righteousness.
Heavens, we have heard of Moab's pride, her overweening pride and conceit. Her pride and her insolence, her boasts are empty.
Therefore the Moabites wail. They wail together for Moab, lament and grieve for the men of Kir Hareseth. The fields of Heshbon wither, the vines of Sibah also. The rulers of the nations have trampled down the choicest vines which once reached Jazer and spread toward the desert. Their shoots spread out and went as far as the sea. Now wait a minute, that first part though, what's that make you think of? In love, a throne will be established. In faithfulness, a man will sit on it, one from the house of David, one who in judging seeks justice and speeds the cause of righteousness. There's another messianic preview, isn't it? Mm-hmm. Isaiah.
So I weep as Jazer weeps for the vines of Sibmah. O Heshbon, O Eliah, I drench you with tears.
Heavens, the shouts of joy over your ripened fruit and over your harvest have been stilled.
Joy and gladness are taken away from the orchards. No one sings or shouts in the vineyards. No one treads out wine at the presses.
For I have put an end to the shouting. My heart laments for Moab like a harp, my inmost being for Kir Hareseth. When Moab appears at her high place, she only wears herself out. When she goes to her shrine to pray, it is to no avail.
So that's the problem for God with this whole thing. He weeps for them. He feels bad that this is happening to them. But they're going to Chemosh and their Moab's god to ask for favor. And God is saying, I feel bad for you, but you're still not even coming to me after all of this has happened. Harold?
This is the word the Lord has already spoken concerning Moab.
Within 3 years, as a servant bound by a contract would count them, Moab's splendor and all her many people will be despised, and her survivors will be very few and feeble.
An oracle concerning Damascus.
See, Damascus will no longer be a city, but will become a heap of ruins. The cities of Aor will be deserted and left to flocks, which will lie down, with no one to make them afraid. The fortified city will disappear from Ephraim, and royal power from Damascus. The remnant of Aram will be like the glory of the Israelites.
So Damascus was the capital of Syria, and it was located northeast of Mount Hermon on the strategic trade routes. Since the time of David, the Arameans of Damascus were frequent enemies of Israel, and they're the ones that are going to become a heap of ruins because they've allied with Damascus. Genesis 10 tells us that one of Shem's sons was Aram. Remember, Jacob married Rebekah, and he went up to Aram to cousin Laban. Oh, wasn't Laban a nice character?
Oh.
Yeah, and remember when Jacob left, he worked for Laban for 7 years, and then he got hooked into working another 7 years for the other daughter, right? And then he tried to sneak away. How'd that work out? No. So anyway, there's been a lot of events occur with that group. So
Yeah.
okay, so we're going to stop there for today. Yeah, we'll stop there today. So what do you think?
A lot of stuff.
A lot of stuff. I know. I like seeing the foreshadowing though. I think that's really interesting to see. And to see how that, comes around. Because we're studying on Wednesday night, not this week, but the next week, we're doing a Revelation right now. And so we're like on chapter 4 or 5, we're just getting into the different picture parts, and so I'm really trying to pay attention to Isaiah because it does all that foreshadowing of events, so it's kind of fun. So, okay, let's